Hi, I'm Jan Ozer. I'm sitting here on the last day, thankfully, of IBC with Mark Donnigan, strategic marketing here at NETINT, and he just finished a panel on low latency. Mark, why don't you tell us what you covered in the panel?
Yeah, so Jan, we talked about the fact that there are multiple approaches to low latency. And it's interesting because there's some standardized approaches. There's also some proprietary technologies that are coming out that are enabling these experiences to be much more reliable and much more stable. And we also talked about the fact that now you can really only deliver low latency experiences in new encoding with new encoding architectures like hardware. Software, it's certainly possible, but economically, it just it doesn't make sense.
So what are the, when you talk about low latency, what are you talking about? What are the delays and what are the different approaches to that?
Yeah, that's really important, Jan, because everyone uses the word low latency. In some people's minds, that's 5 seconds, which frankly, compared to the experience of most network latencies today, that is very low. Other people think like 1 second or even lower. So I think it's important that we draw the distinction between HTTP live streaming approaches, and that would be HLS or dash, or LL-HLS, LL dash, which are designed, of course, to get into maybe that 4 or 5 second range. Theoretically, I know 2 or 3 seconds, but I think really feasibly, And then as soon as you go to WebRTC, now you can get into 1 second and into the hundreds or even tens of milliseconds. Obviously, a lot of factors there. But those are the two primary approaches. Now, there's some very interesting proprietary technologies that are represented. Theo Player was on our panel, and of course they are advocating for a new HESP technology. There's some other proprietary, or I might even say custom variants of WebRTC. We, of course, are agnostic, and we love all those technologies because our product works, obviously, regardless of how you're going to deliver the bits.
What are the implications of the type of encoder that you use for low latency?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, it is just crystal clear, and sitting here in the very last day, literally the last hour of IBC, we have heard for 4 days straight power, energy, CO2, but it all comes back to power requirements, right? And density. And frankly, the only way you can hit the marks that are really needed to either economically be viable for these services or just be able to hit the energy thresholds is with hardware. It's the only option. And you have obviously GPU, we're all familiar with that architecture, definitely can give a massive improvement over CPU, but nothing can beat an ASIC. An ASIC is a purpose-built chip that is designed to do one thing and one thing really, really well. And we had a nice conversation.
So understanding the technical differences, give us some benchmark numbers.
Yeah, so the benchmarks are really remarkable. Our smallest U.2 module that does H.264 HEVC only requires 7 watts, and that is to encode 8 HD streams with very high quality, broadcast quality simultaneous. Then put that in context of what it means in a server. You could take a 1 RU server with 10 slots, so 10 U.2 slots, and get as many as 160 1080p 60 channels. If you only needed 30 frames, well, you just double it. So 320 on a single server, which is just unheard of density.
What is the typical GPU draw? You talked about 7 watts for the T408. What's a GPU?
7 watts. Typical GPU is, it's closer to, I think, 30 or 40 watts. And, some of the big hot rods are much higher than that.
And of course, the CPU server running itself is going to be in the 250 to 300 range.
250 to 300, that's right.
Okay. Well, listen, thanks for filling us in on the conversation, and thanks for joining us today on this last day of IBC.
All right. Thanks, Jan.